Hi everyone, welcome to the best recapped movie. The 2012 movie is an apocalyptic movie that shows the world's end after environmental changes and an increase in the temperature of the Earth's crust. While the rich start building a ship to save themselves with high costs, an unsuccessful American writer also tries to save his family from death and bring them to this ship. Spoilers ahead. In 2009, Adrian Helmsley, scientific advisor to the President of the United States, visited his Indian scientist colleague, Dr. Satnam. He took him to an old copper mine to inform him about recent anomalies in the Earth's crust. He sees a powerful solar flare with neutrino radiation heating the Earth's core. Satnam warns him that the biggest explosions in human history are taking place, and his concern is more about the Earth's physical reaction, as calculations show that the Earth's crust will begin to melt by 2012. Adrian quickly returns to America, and while he doesn't look good enough to enter the party, he takes his colleague Scotty's coat to meet Carl Anheuser, an official close to the president, at the White House. He shares with him his observations in the copper mine in India, and Carl asks him to prepare to meet the president immediately. Thomas Wilson, the President of the United States, opened the meeting of the leaders of the 8 countries and warned them that the Earth would soon be destroyed. They started a project to build a ship in China to save humanity, and a citizen named Tenzin was accepted as a welder in this project. Jackson Curtis, an unsuccessful American writer, wakes up late and prepares to visit his children. On the way, he sees huge cracks in Manhattan Beach that cause panic among the people. He will take his daughter Lily and son Noah camping on vacation, and his ex-wife Kate is surprised that he will take the kids camping in a limousine. Kate is now living with a plastic surgeon, Gordon Silberman, and continues to ask Jackson to spend more time with the children and not just focus on his work. Harry, Adrian's father, is returning to Washington with his old friend Tony, and it seems that Tony has long ignored his son because he is married to a Japanese girl. After talking for a while, a strange thing happens, and the unconscious ship loses its balance and scares everyone so that an earthquake has happened. When Jackson moves to Yellowstone Park with his children, the flight of several helicopters catches their attention. They hear the voice of Charlie Frost, a conspiracy theorist, about resurrection scenarios on the radio, and they think it's a joke. Adrian and Carl are talking to the president, and Adrian warns him about recent events. At this moment, Laura, the daughter of the president, enters the room and informs her father about the sudden death of the director of the Louvre Museum in France, who was one of her friends who was killed in a car bomb. After Adrian and Carl leave the room, Thomas explains to his daughter that the world will soon be destroyed and that he is in an international effort with the heads of 46 countries to save humanity by building a project. On the other hand, Jackson is trying to take his children to the lake he used to visit with Kate. After passing through a forbidden fence, they find the lake has dried up while a mysterious person looks at them from afar. He reports that they have entered the war zone. A little later, a military battalion informs Jackson that they have entered a prohibited area and must leave it. They take them to the operations center, and Adrian accidentally meets Jackson. It turns out that he is a fan of his books, and he considers it a great honor to meet him and asks the agents to farewell him with respect. After that, Adrian and Professor West are aware of the critical condition of the Earth in video communication with Satnam, and he asks him to start the evacuation with reports of the Earth's crust shaking. Adrian is shocked to hear this, and after a little pause, he informs Satnam that he will arrange a flight to take him out of Delhi. He informs Carl about the evacuation operation and that he learns about the critical condition, and then Satnam informs his son and wife that they will go to a big ship. The disheveled man stops Jackson and asks what the government agents told him. After he explains that they warned about the area's instability, he starts laughing and he passes him in surprise. When the night comes, he learns about the presence of the government garrison in Yellowstone National Park through the internet and gets a little worried. After that, Lily asks him to stop working and pay attention to them. He joins them and sees that Noah has a phone and, as a father, is upset about this, but Noah says that Gordon took it for him, and it seems his relationship with Jackson is not good. Jackson gets to work in his car, and by listening to the sound of the radio, he realizes that Charlie Frost is the theorist of the same disheveled man and decides to join him. Charlie stops his radio show when he arrives and informs him by hosting him that the world is being destroyed according to the predictions of thousands of years ago. Now, politicians are building a safe ship to save themselves that they are not allowed to attend it. He tells him that he is mysteriously killed whenever someone tries to reveal this truth. He shows him some of these people and explains that one of them sent him a map of the ship's location. At the same time, while shopping at the supermarket, Gordon seems to be trying to repair his relationship with Kate. He asks her to have a baby when suddenly the floor cracks terribly and separates them. Jackson and the kids get this news from the store's TV, and after calling Noah, Kate asks him they return home as soon as possible. Carl informs Thomas before the meeting of the heads of state that they should start the evacuation as soon as possible, and during the secret meeting, Adrian explains that they finally have 2 or 3 days. Thomas also officially announced the beginning of the evacuation operation as the President of the United States. Russian billionaire Yuri Karpov enters the stadium with his girlfriend Tamara to watch his son's boxing match. As soon as the match starts, he receives an evacuation message and leaves immediately. Jackson brings the kids home, and since his other job is driving for the Karpov family, he calls him and asks him to get his boys on the plane as soon as possible. He immediately picks up Yuri's 2 sons and takes them to the airport, and as they go to the plane, they tell him, "You will die and we will live." Jackson, who realizes what he heard is true, rents a plane at the airport and rushes to his family. He calls Kate and asks her to prepare herself and the children as soon as possible because they have to escape, but she does not take his words seriously and hangs up. Suddenly, an earthquake happens just as Jackson arrives, asking them to get in the car immediately. The road cracks horribly behind them, the houses around are destroyed one after another, and the freeway collapses. While Jackson is driving hard and in complete confusion, they reach the airport and find the pilot dead on the ground. Since Gordon already had experience in flight training, he reluctantly accepted the task of being a pilot, and they managed to fly from the airport with difficulty. While the city was being destroyed and the towers were collapsing, they managed to survive this incident. Jackson informs them of the escape plan in Charlie's hand, and after that, they see a devastating scene where the city drowns in the ocean. Adrian calls to his father, Harry, and informs him of the state of destruction of the earth. However, his father sheds tears and says that life is good and he is not worried about death, as if it is their last calling. With Jackson's insistence, Gordon lands the plane for refueling near Yellowstone National Park, and Jackson and his daughter rush to find Charlie and get his escape plan. When they reach his vehicle, they don't find him and only hear his voice on the radio, so they decide to find him. On the way, Jackson, with the help of his daughter Lily, finds him on top of a mountain and quickly moves towards him. Upon reaching him, a flock of birds rises and takes flight as he begs Charlie to give him the map. Charlie gives him the map's address on the bookshelves in the car and refuses to run away because he plans to stay to see this beautiful sight up close. As soon as they run away, there is an explosion far more powerful than a nuclear explosion, and Jackson asks Lily not to look behind her. One of the volcano's shots hits the back of the car, forcing him to jump through a crack to get to the plane. When arrives, he decides to take the map from the car, but as soon as he finds it, the ground splits, and the car falls. While Kate and the others are waiting for him, Gordon decides to start the flight, and a little later, luckily, Jackson saves himself and barely makes it to the plane. Gordon manages to pass the plane safely through this accident, and after Jackson opens the map, he realizes the destination is China, and they need a bigger plane. Carl tells Adrian that he doesn't want to bring anyone with him, not even his old mother, because he's sure she wants to meet her creator under certain circumstances when she dies. It has covered the world, and people in different parts have sought refuge in prayer because the world is on the verge of collapse, and Adrian says that it is not right to hide this matter. He says the world's people should be aware of this destruction, but Carl warns him about revealing it and says they will tell them about it after boarding the ship. They go to the president, but he wants to speak with Adrian alone and informs him that he will not board the ship because he wants to be with his people as the last president of the United States. After learning about this, Carl shares this with the country's authorities, who call him a great man. President Thomas explains to Laura in a call with his daughter that she would never have boarded the plane if he had said this. He plans to announce this news to the people to allow them to say goodbye to each other. After Gordon lands the plane at the Las Vegas airport, they wait for a way out for themselves, and Thomas informs the people about the Earth's imminent destruction. Still, it didn't take long before his video communication with the people was interrupted due to anomalies. Yuri's girlfriend Tamara meets and joins Gordon, her plastic surgeon. After Jackson meets Yuri, he begs him to accept his family. Yuri's special pilot, Sasha, informs him that he found a Russian plane but needs a co-pilot to take it off, and they suggest Gordon. With Yuri's agreement, they make it to the plane in any way possible and somehow save themselves from death in the destruction of Las Vegas. They immediately face an obstacle that Gordon passes well, and Sasha informs them that their destination is China. In the mountains of Tibet, a young Buddhist monk named Nima is being counseled by his senior Lama Lakya, who imparts wisdom to him, giving him the keys to an old truck and warning him to be careful of slippery roads. He quickly goes to his grandparents and informs them that his older brother Tenzin asked them to visit him as soon as possible. Shortly after the flight, Gordon and Sasha see Hawaii buried under molten material and show it to Jackson and Yuri, and due to insufficient fuel, Sasha insists they may have to make an emergency water landing. Tony, who was informed about the end of the world by Harry, decides to call his son and end their hostility, and when his granddaughter picks up the phone, he asks her to give the phone to her father. Unfortunately, an earthquake happens when he tries to answer his call, and suddenly their communication is cut off. On the other hand, the president walks among the people who have taken shelter from the volcanic ash and is a close witness to their pain and suffering. Suddenly, a great earthquake shakes Washington, and the obelisk tower falls, and the connection between the survivors and the White House is lost. At the same time, in Italy, in the Vatican, while people were praying, a great earthquake destroyed that place. Scotty learns from the data that the Earth's crust is moving. Adrian worries whether the massive blue wave will reach the Sea of Japan because he knows his father is traveling in that area. The wave of water is getting closer to the ship every moment. After the ship loses control, Harry watches this scene closely and the ship sinks under a huge wave of water. The movement of the Earth's crust brings a huge flood of water to Washington, and while Thomas hopes he will soon be reunited with his wife, Washington is also destroyed under the water. Kate joins Jackson, sitting in one of Yuri's cars, and they talk a bit about their past. She replies that she is interested enough in Gordon after he asks her about him. Also, on the president's plane, Adrian tells Carl that the Earth's crust has shifted 23 degrees, and the poles have reversed polarity. As Jackson and the others on the plane prepare to land in the water, Sasha asks Gordon to inform them of the change in ground conditions. After Jackson and Yuri join them in the cabin, Sasha confirms that due to changes in the Earth's crust, they are now in the mountains near China. That's why they decide to land in the mountains, and Sasha asks them to get out of the plane by car because they only have fuel for 18 more minutes. After getting close to the ground, Gordon joins them, and they manage to get out of the plane with a Bentley. Still, unfortunately, Sasha fails to control the plane, and the plane crashes and explodes. After this incident, Jackson and the others see helicopters carrying large animals to ships, and a helicopter lands. Since only Yuri and his 2 children have passports, they are accepted to the ship, and the rest are not taken. After the landing of the president's plane, they move towards the ship, and when Captain Michaels meets Carl, he explains to him that only 3 ships are left. It seems that during the trip, there is an emotional connection between Adrian and Laura, and after some talk about the past, his many books attracted her attention. They arrive at the ship by bus, while its construction is still not complete. On the other hand, an inspector prevents rich people, including Yuri and his children, from entering the ship. Jackson and the rest of the group see Nima on the way into the mountains and run towards him, and at his grandmother's advice, they also put them on the truck. Carl and other American officials get on the ship, and Adrian gets upset with him because more people can get there with this much space. Satnam calls him and says that no plane has come to save them and informs him that a big ocean wave will soon drown them all. He then says goodbye to him, and while looking at his son, the raging wave of the ocean drowns them. He argues with Carl that no plane came to save his friend. Scotty warns them that the flood will soon reach them, and after activating the stopwatch, they realize that they only have 28 minutes, and Carl orders them to arrange contact with the heads of the countries to open the gates. Nima drives his truck to his brother Tenzin, who is the ship's welder, and he is upset that he brought Jackson and the others with him and asks him to return them. Kate begs to accept only her children, but in the end, he accepts them all at his grandmother's insistence. Realizing that the ship's gates will close soon, Yuri shoves the guard aside, and a large crowd of people who have been waiting move towards the ship while Adrian and Laura watch the people desperately trying to get to their ship. Tenzin also sneaks the group into the ship so that they can get inside by passing the unauthorized channels. Adrian addresses the world leaders on the other ships and asks them to let people aboard. He convinces them with a good speech, and Captain Michaels orders the gates to be opened, with most of them agreeing. When the gates open, they get trapped by the gears, and Tenzin's leg is injured. Unfortunately, they lose Gordon. While Yuri and his children are stuck on the edge of the abyss, a part of the cable gets stuck between the gears, and Jackson is saved from death. The flood soon reaches them, and people quickly enter the ship. When the gates are closed, Yuri manages to save his 2 children, but he falls himself. The cable stuck in the gears prevents the gate from closing completely. Captain Michaels says that he cannot turn on the engines until the gate is closed, and there will be a disturbance in starting the ship. On the other hand, the flood will reach the ship and hit it with power. They notice Jackson's presence, and Adrian takes one of the crew members with him to help. Jackson tells Keith about Gordon's death, and then Adrian warns him in a video contact that if he doesn't fix the problem, they will all die. He tells Adrian he'll do his best and kisses Kate as he leaves, and a little further on, Tamara is trapped in a chamber full of water. Noah swims to help his father, and while Tenzin thinks there is no chance, Nima tells him not to lose faith. While the ship is on the verge of hitting Mount Everest at any moment, Jackson finally releases the barrier with the help of his son, and the gate closes. Noah goes to his mother, and with a little pause they are disappointed with Jackson's return. Fortunately, he appears and hugs his family. The ship is saved from hitting Everest by closing the gate completely, and they continue. After 27 days, when things seem to be going well, Adrian reveals his love for Laura, and when they kiss, people are informed that they can now come on the ship's deck and get some fresh air. Professor West tells Adrian that there is still land on Earth and that the continent of Africa may not have gone underwater at all. On the other hand, Lily tells Jackson she is no longer afraid, and they move forward with more hope at the movie's end, and their destination seems to be the continent of Africa, the only land on Earth. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.